Okay, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages. So we've completed the first module of our course here. We've kind of covered a lot of the background, and now we're going to get into a lot of the guts of the Fourth Amendment and its applicability, the meat and potatoes, if you will. So why not start right off with the first thing mentioned in the Fourth Amendment there, which is search warrants. And I do kind of find it interesting here that your textbook titles this chapter Criminal Investigatory Search Warrants as if there was some other kind of a search warrant. But anyway, so we'll move on. I do want you to note one thing about the background photo. Massive strike team. I mean, just absolutely massive. And what you see going on here in this photo is what is called a no-knock search warrant, which we will discuss in a little bit greater detail here in just a little bit. So the first thing is, what is a search warrant? I mean, the Fourth Amendment tells us that you're free from unreasonable searches and seizures, and that no warrants shall be issued except upon an oath or affirmation describing the particular place to be searched and the particular things to be seized. But it doesn't really tell us what a search warrant is. And so search warrants have been the topic of case law for decades or even centuries, but certainly for decades. And case law itself has defined what the search warrant is. So all of these things that you see there on the screen have been carved out in case law as far as what the search warrant is. So with that, you're going to see a lot of case citations mentioned in this discussion in the chapter. And as I always say, you are going to want to look these cases up and read the syllabus of the court and the ruling. So the other day, I took the class to the Supreme Court's website, found a criminal case that was decided sometime in January of 2019, and showed them where the syllabus of the court was in the ruling and kind of what that was. And so when you look at these cases from the Supreme Court, the particular case that we looked at the other day, and I don't remember the citation, it's on there somewhere, but when you look at these cases, the opinion of the court is, forever long. The case we looked at the other day in class was 34 pages. And that's why I tell you in class and in these video lectures that when I tell you to look at the syllabus of the court and the ruling, it's going to save you a lot of time. That case that was 34 pages worth of opinion by the justices had a syllabus and ruling that was only 2 pages long. So I trimmed 32 pages off of it. And basically, the syllabus of the court tells you what from the case the court is looking at to decide. And then it gives you the brief legal history of those things, and then which way the holding tells you which way the court ruled on it. And then after that, then that's where you get all of the meat and potatoes of the case. It was the dark of the moon and the 5th of June and the Kenworth hauling logs and all of that business, rather than we're here to discuss whether or not a motion to suppress evidence seized in what the officer claimed was plain view should be upheld. So it's a lot less details in the syllabus and the ruling, but you still get the gist of the case. And by reading the syllabus of the case, it tells you in there what they're deciding, and then you can decide for yourself from that syllabus whether you want to read the entire length of the case. But like I said, that's just an example that we had from class the other day. One other thing that I want you to understand is whenever you're looking at these cases and you're looking for something that is a criminal case from the Supreme Court's website, because you're trying to stay on top of recent court rulings like a good criminologist and criminal justice professional, like the criminal justice professionals that I know you are. One thing that you're going to want to look at is, does the title of the case involve the name of a governmental subdivision? Okay. So John Doe versus United States, John Doe versus Kansas, John Doe versus the city of Liberal. Okay. Does that case citation involve a governmental subdivision? Okay. Now, if it's something like John Q. Public versus the U.S. Department of Energy, that's going to be a lawsuit. That's a civil matter. And in general, we don't give two craps about that. On occasion, you'll find a civil lawsuit that is applicable to us in criminal justice because it provides some guidance in how we're going to do our job. And those are going to be a 1983 lawsuit, 42 USC 1983, under the Ku Klux Klan Act. But as a general rule, if you see something like that where it's like John Q. Public versus the city of Liberal Water Department, that's going to be a lawsuit because somebody's upset over the water truck sprayed the paint off of their garden gnome and they're upset about it. But whenever you see a name and a governmental subdivision, so like United States or Kansas or Oklahoma or City of Liberal or County of Stevens, that's whenever you're going to be looking at a criminal case. And those are the ones that we really deal with most often, especially as far as criminal procedure is concerned. So with that, understand that case law is everything whenever you're talking about the Fourth Amendment and what a search warrant is. So now that I've taken that little bit of an aside there on explaining how to interpret these case laws and whatnot, let's talk about a search warrant. So a search warrant is an order in writing issued by a proper judicial authority, issued in the name of the people. It is directed to a law enforcement officer. It commands the officer to search for certain personal property and commanding the officer to bring that property before the judicial authority named in the warrant. Okay, so a couple things that you want to be aware of here is that it is directed to a law enforcement officer. Okay. Arrest warrants are, issued to any peace officer in the state of Kansas, but a search warrant says to Josiah Smitty, corporal with the Liberal Police Department, you go here and do this, not to any peace officer in Kansas. Okay. It also tells us specific items to look for, probably because whenever I write the search warrant, I tell them what I want to search for, but I have to be specific, and we'll talk about the particularity requirement in a minute. And then it also requires that I bring the property before the judicial authority named in the warrant. We'll talk about how we do that in a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and stop this one for now, and then we'll move on in part 2.